Good afternoon, everyone. Amity Center of Excellence in Astrobiology, Amity Institute of Biotechnology, would like to welcome you to our series of lectures on career guidance talks in astrobiology. Amity Center of Excellence in Astrobiology has a number of interdisciplinary faculties working on different projects and has recently launched India's first master's course in astrobiology and space sciences this fall. This series of guidance talks by different scientists from different organizations is to shed light on what are the possibilities and directions for someone who chooses to take astrobiology. Today, the third talk in the series is by Dr. Sudha Rajamani, an astrobiologist from IISER Pune. But before that, I would like to welcome Dr. Renita Joby, in charge of Aqua, to give the welcome address.
Good afternoon, everyone. So it's indeed a pleasure to extend a warm welcome to Dr. Sudha Rajamani from IISER Pune. And along with her, I also welcome all the participants who have joined today's session on career guidance in astrobiology. So we are honored to have someone like Sudha, who with her vast experience in this field will be able to guide you to your astrobiology path and the scopes that exist in India. And surely we are going to privilege and benefit from her wisdom and expertise. And I'm sure today's talk is also going to be helpful to all the students who have enrolled with us and who plan to enroll with us in the new course of MSc in Astrobiology and Space Sciences, which is going to start from August. And I'm sure this is going to be a very enriching experience, and I encourage all of you to actively participate in the discussion and pose your questions freely. Thank you once again for your presence and participation.
Thank you, Dr. Renita. Now, here's a little bit more about our speaker, Dr. Sudha Rajamani. Dr. Sudha Rajamani is an astrobiologist who is an associate professor and the deputy chair of biology at the Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, IISER, in Pune. She completed her PhD in biochemistry from the National Institute of Immunology in New Delhi. She did her postdoctoral research at the FAS Center for Systems Biology at Harvard University and at the Deamer Lab at UCSC, where her research interest in astrobiology and especially in origins of life were nurtured. She is the principal investigator of the Chemical Origins of Life, COOL lab at IISER Pune, where she and her team use tools from biology, chemistry, geochemistry, and sometimes physics to delineate the processes and niches that would have allowed for the transition from non-life to life on the early Earth. Sudha is also deeply involved in astrobiology education, both formally and via science outreach programs. In particular, she feels strongly about mentoring school and UG students in their pursuit in astrobiology as a career. And with that, the floor is all yours, Dr. Sudha.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Renita. Thank you, Pavitra, for having me over. Very nice to meet a few new people and nice to see some old names from the ESCP. And good morning to everyone. And to some of the newer people, maybe by the end of this talk, I'll not feel as new anymore. So I'm going to first start off with sharing the screen. I have a small sort of talk, and I feel like that can be used to set the stage for multiple conversations. And that's not what I want you to see. Sorry about that. Oops. Yeah. Do you see the right screen now?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to go into the presentation mode. Is it still visible?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to use a few slides to give you a sense of how do we think about the astrobiological narrative that underlies life's origin. When I say that, what do I mean? I mean that astrobiology, first of all, is the science that deals with understanding the origins, the evolution, and the distribution of life in the universe. And one of the important ways to think about this transition from non-life to life on the early Earth is to think about how chemistry might have transitioned to biology. And what do I mean by that? This is basically my lab. It has a few new people now, and it has a few old people that are still showing up. But suffice to say, there are a whole bunch of people that make it exciting for us to undertake the research that we carry out in the lab, and we ask a lot of different questions, and we can touch upon it as we go further. So what do I mean by what I said? What I mean is based on this very important continuum that exists between physics, chemistry, and biology. So if you can see, let me see if I can get a pointer going here. Can you see my pointer? Okay, I'm assuming you're going.
Yes, yes.
Great. So in the realm of physics, what do you have? You have atoms, and here you're just seeing a couple of examples like hydrogen, helium, and carbon. These atoms come together to form small molecules, which now exist in the realm of chemistry. And here are two images, which are actually artistic renditions, but nevertheless, they are based on data that we have been able to obtain from high-end telescopes that peer into the interstellar medium and the space, outer space, basically showing that there is a lot of interesting chemistry that is possible in the interstellar medium, where you can have some of these atoms come together to form small molecules. Now, in this chemical realm space, when these small molecules come together to form much larger molecules, you now have these much larger molecules evolve functions which cannot be ascribed back to the individual monomers in the chemical space. These are called emergent properties, and these emergent properties in these molecules is probably what set the stage for transition from non-life to life. I hope now it makes sense to you when I say that trying to understand the chemical origins of life actually allows you to understand how life might have originated, for example, on our planet. And you can take this understanding to actually look for life elsewhere in the universe. Now, where do we think these biomolecules would have been present? They could have been present in niches where very interesting thermal and chemical fluxes were being facilitated. I'm showing you two possibilities that are predominantly thought of as ways in which biomolecules could have been present on the early Earth. On the left side, you see this particular panel. It is basically showing certain meteorites and cometary bodies coming and striking the Earth. These would have carried a lot of that interesting chemical molecules that I talked to you about in the interstellar medium. It would have ridden in these asteroids and meteorites, and when they bombarded Earth, they basically sort of allowed them to be sort of get mixed with the Earth's environment. On the other hand, inorganic molecules present on Earth could have undergone very interesting chemistry in niches like what you're seeing on the right side. These are volcanic geothermal pools present at the edges of volcanoes, where you have very, very interesting thermal fluxes. You have a lot of rocks present, minerals present in these rocks that allows for really fun surface catalysis reactions. And hence, these niches would have also been rife with some of these fundamental chemical molecules, which are now in the realm of monomers of biology, like the ones that I've listed below, including glycine, alanine, glutamic acid. These are some of your amino acids. You have hydroxy acids like glycolic acid, formic acid, lactic acid, acetic acid, and then you have molecules also like urea. Actually, urea has a very interesting history, right? That was one of the first molecules to be made in the lab from fundamental ingredients, which allowed us to believe that a molecule that is synthesized in the body, which you pee out, can actually be made in a test tube. Then, given all of this very interesting possibilities that set the stage for very exciting chemistry on the Earth, we think that these molecules interacted with each other in these prebiotic soup-like environments to essentially set the stage for life, which is crazily diverse as the slide encompasses. What are you seeing? You're seeing everything from a bacteria to a human, and in between you have a lot of other very interesting organisms like T-Rex here, mushrooms here. These are coastal redwoods that you find in California and some stretches of California. There's a giant catfish. What is common to all of these living beings that you see on the slide? Can anybody tell me that? If you can unmute your Pavitra and Renita, can they unmute themselves and talk? I think they can, right?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Awesome. So can somebody tell me what is the least common denominator of all these images, all these living creatures in these images? What binds them together?
Carbon molecules?
Let's be, does life have only carbon molecules? Who said that? Is it Anand?
Yes.
Anand, life has more than carbon molecules. What are the atoms that fundamental life molecules are made of? CHNO, and S, and throw a bunch of other less represented elements in there, and it's a whole spread, right? So the answer is not carbon. I'm not looking for that answer. Look at it. You're looking at single cellular entities and you're looking at a whole bunch of multicellular entities. What is it that binds them together? Or what is the least common? What is the minimal thing that needs to be present in all of them to make them alive?
Reproduction or cell division.
Cells. What are they made of? Cells, correct? The single cell bacteria is a cell, right? Mandela is made of cells, T-Rex is made of cells, mushroom is made of cells, plants are made of cells. So the unifying fundamental least common denominator amongst all of this is the presence of cells. So the one interesting way to think about it is to try and understand, how do you go from the molecules in the prebiotic soup to the fundamental unit of all life, which is cells? And for the biology students who have logged in today, you'll notice that I've put out representative images of illustrations of two different kinds of cells: a prokaryotic cell, which is like the bacterial cell, a eukaryotic cell, which is what your body and my body is made of. Already one will appreciate the fact that the eukaryotic cell is extremely complex, so we'll not think about that. But look at the prokaryotic cell for a second. Do you think it's complex? Interaction, people, interaction. No interaction, I'm not moving ahead.
I think a lot of them are typing the answer to the chat box.
Yes.
They're typing, I can't open the chat box. So people talk. Okay.
Yes.
It is complex. Is that what you're saying?
Relatively less complex.
Relatively less, but is it complex enough?
Yes, it is complex enough. Yeah.
It is bloody complex. So what are the kinds of cells I'm talking about, which we think might have been ancestors of even the prokaryotic cell? And we'll get to that in a second. But the idea is that the fundamental unit of all life is what is common to all life. So one way to understand the question of how the transition from non-life to life happened is by trying to understand, how did the molecules of the prebiotic soup come together to form the minimal cell, the earliest minimal cells? Here, why are single cell organisms so cool? Because they can live in environments where you and I will cease to exist. They can resist very high UV exposures. They thrive in high temperatures. Some of them, they're called hyperthermophiles. They love salt-loving organisms or halophiles. And some of them are found living in extremely cold temperatures. And these are permafrost dwelling organisms. Yeah. So cryophiles. So you basically can appreciate the fact that despite being a single cellular entity, these single cells have been able to populate pretty much every niche on the planet, irrespective of how extreme or not it is. So then the question to ask is, what might have this most oldest of all cells been? The original tree of life, which all of us are familiar with, will invoke this term called LUCA, the last universal common ancestor, from which the three domains of life came about. But now the understanding from the last, I would say, 30, 40 years has made us realize that it's more complex. Probably the tree looks more like this now. And even this is very simplified, just to let us appreciate the fact that you probably had a common ancestral community of very primitive cells, which then, depending upon the selection pressures that acted on them, led to some sort of a space from where you had LUCA or LUCA-like entities, which then led to the three domains of life. So I'm going to talk to you for a second, for a couple of slides more about this ancestral community of cells. And here is an artist illustration of it. We think of it as fundamentally a bilayered structure, just like how it is in your cells and my cells, made up of this particular molecule. This particular bilayer is made up of lipids, but not the complex lipids that your cells and my cells are made of, much more simpler. This is almost like a tennis ball. Take a tennis ball and kind of shave a little of it, and you're looking at the interior of the tennis ball. It basically encapsulates some genetic material which can encode information, and it probably encapsulates a minimal metabolic network that allows it to stay alive, be far from equilibrium. If it's not far from equilibrium, it would be dead. So suffice to say that all the wonderful data that we have gathered from prebiotic chemistry, paleontology, geological evidence that we have of early Earth, and from studying the extreme forms of life, this particular story is finally coming into view. Have we figured everything out? No, the puzzle is still lacking a ton of pieces, but has it allowed us to appreciate what the initial steps of this transition could be? The answer is yes. So now let's go back very quickly to the very first slide I showed you, right? What are the various sciences involved in studying all of this? You have 3 different realms of sciences represented here.
Chemistry,
Okay,
atomic level,
say that again.
at micro level,
What is the area of science that allows-
biochemistry, microbiology, molecular biochemistry.
Wonderful. All of you are biologists. Can we step away from biology and think a little bit more? What's happening in the realm of physics? What can you glean? I mean,
Quantum biology,
what
Quantum
areas?
physics.
Astrochemistry.
Astrochemistry, astronomy, first of all. How did the universe come about?
quantum
Astro-
biology,
Astrochemistry. We'll get to quantum biology, which is super complex, much later, please. Astrochemistry, which allows you to understand what are the fundamental
Astrobiology.
molecules that are found in the outer space. Biology, a whole set of areas of biology that you've already touched upon. Biochemistry, molecular biology.
Ecology.
Sorry?
Ecology.
Ecology. Ecology talks to us about, once you understand that there are X kinds of molecules in a niche, in understanding their interactions is essentially ecological, studying the interactions in a certain niche. So of course it invokes fundamental hypotheses in the ecological realm. Very correct. But the idea is to say that you already see how many areas of science have been represented on this one slide that is required, the tools of which are required to be able to understand all of this. And I basically use the slide to say the following, that astrobiology is an extremely interdisciplinary area of research and feeds off of inputs from diverse area of sciences, a good number of which I've represented here, but it's not fully representative. There's still, for example, I didn't put math here, and math informs physics. A lot of math concepts informs geology. A lot of math concepts underlie some of our understanding of concepts in ecology. Math underlies astronomy. So suffice to say, astrobiology is an extremely interdisciplinary area of study, and you can like one or the other area or a couple of areas and train yourself to be really good in those areas and still be able to ask a question that is relevant in astrobiology. What do I mean by that? We in our lab are very interested in understanding how do the molecules of the prebiotic soup assemble into the most ancestral form of cells, because that would have set the stage for transition from non-life to life, and then later on to evolution of complexity. I mean, there's evolution of molecular complexity in this realm too. Here I'm talking about organismal complexity. Yeah. So what are the tools that we use in my own lab? Biochemistry, molecular biology, biophysics. Prebiotic chemistry is not there. A lot of inorganic and synthetic organic chemistry. Yeah, organic chemistry is here, inorganic chemistry is here, very nice. Geochemistry. And we are not experts in modeling, so we actually collaborate with faculty members that are experts in literally figuring out questions using computers. So they help us with the modeling. So we bring in this extremely diverse understanding to ask this question: how do you transition from prebiotic soup to a minimal cell? What I'm trying to do here is to give you a sense of what all areas of science astrobiology can encompass. And you do not have to be a trained geologist, biologist, chemist, paleontologist, ecologist, astronomer. No. What am I? My training was in, if you remember what Pavitra said, I'm a biochemist by training. My PhD was on understanding sickle cell anemia. And once I finished training in the tools of biochemistry, and when I moved to studying my favorite questions in astrobiology, I use those set of tools. I use that training and got the background context of astrobiological questions, particularly in the realm that exists between geology, chemistry, and biology, to basically come up with a set of interesting questions that I can answer in the lab using biochemistry and molecular biology and biophysics as tools. But very quickly, I brought on board people who know organic chemistry, who know inorganic chemistry, and formed a team of people that can collectively answer this question, the questions we're interested in, yeah? Unfortunately, I did not have the time to put together my own pipeline, so I'm going to fall back on this particular image that I got from a very
NASA Astrobiology web.
correct. I always give credit, and it's in the next slide. So basically, this is just to give you a pipeline of what you can do to set yourself to become an astrobiologist. And there are multiple ways to become one, yeah? At some point, when did you all get interested? You heard you read some pop science article about this, or you learned about some very, very basically, I'm guessing many of you would have heard the term Urey-Miller experiment. Urey-Miller experiment gets covered in probably 12th grade. And if you go on to do biological sciences at undergrad level, you hear about it just a little bit more even there. So all of this makes you think about, oh, wow, this is cool. Or forget all of this. Nobody has to be a scientist to be able to appreciate the philosophical depth of asking the question, how did I come about on this planet? When I say I'm talking about human, but then immediately the next question is, I'm a living person, so how did life come about? So it's very, very, it's something that people have been pondering for eternity, right? So you can learn about it by listening to podcasts, by reading pop science articles. Now we have something called astrobiology primers, and I'll share some of these tools with Renita and Pavitra if they already don't have access to it. But this astrobiology primer, which is in its version 2, it's a very nice collated content which talks about all the stuff that is encompassed in astrobiology, all the way from astrochemistry to biology. And then some of you students might have already taken advantage of this. There are MOOC courses available online that allow you to get a little better glimpse of what is the field of astrobiology is about. Charles Cockle's course is very famous, and there is another famous course, I'm forgetting by whom, and there's another very interesting course by Sarah Maurer and one other person. So there are a few astro online courses out there, and hopefully next year there'll be a course from us also online, which will talk about how do you go from planets to cells. But after learning a little bit about astrobiology from all these realms, you basically at least begin to start appreciating that it's a very, very diverse area that feeds off of inputs from multiple areas of sciences, which makes it very exciting, but then which makes you wonder, how do I pursue this as a career? Do I have to do all of this? The idea is very simple. You don't have to do all of it. You have to figure out what your fundamental interests lie in and try to earn a degree that can strengthen your fundamental understanding of concepts in those areas of sciences. Now, a very cool thing is the MSc Astrobiology and Space Sciences program that Amity is starting off this year, which allows you to get a slightly more wider perspective of these various areas of sciences to the extent feasible in a 2-year course. And this does at least give you a flavor of what it is that astrobiology encompasses. So if you didn't do any of the online courses and do some more extensive in-depth reading, this master's course is a very, very interesting course to set you on the path of, further going on and doing, earning a more advanced degree in astrobiology in, let's say, in whatever science, yeah? Then whoever gets past this master's course and continues to be interested, in my case, I did my master's. I'm going to say this every step of the way, so you know that you also have certain other paths that you can take. But here is a tailor-made course which you might as well consider. So I was a MSc Life Sciences student, after which I went on to do a PhD in a question using biochemical tools. So along the way, if you were in the US, there are lovely opportunities of attending certain meetings like the AppGrad conference, Happy to share that some of the Indian students and some of the students from other parts of the world are also able to attend these meetings now, though it is still a little limiting in terms of financial logistics. But going to these meetings, attending a lot of online seminars, and I mean, if COVID did anything, one good thing is to give us more access to high quality online seminars from across the world. So by attending these talks, by going to these meetings, you essentially network with your peers and with scientists in the area and start sort of expanding on this community of people that you know. And along the way, you of course did your PhD program and then you earned this PhD degree. Yeah. Now, depending upon where you want to stop, there are a few things that can happen. So you see this job board here. I would like to spend some time talking about it because not everybody who has done a PhD, excuse me, has to continue in academia. Academia is not the end all of everything. And what do I mean by that? There are so many other job opportunities that one has after doing a PhD in any area of science. And what are these possibilities? Being in academia is one, but if you take that away, some of these other opportunities also might sort of overlap in the academic space, but not necessarily have to be in that space. But for example, you can do science writing. If writing is your forte, and if you like to communicate science, you can actually start training simultaneously during your graduate work by taking courses in that space, and you can build on that skill set and you can start being, for example, ISER Pune has a science communicator. And this person plays a very important role in communicating all the fun stuff that we do here to the rest of the world. NCBS, for example, National Center for Biological Sciences, has a whole team of people, which is how I think every institute should work, has a whole team of people that is extremely effective at communicating science that happens in the institute and how it connects to science in the rest of the world. So science communication is one, right? The other very important job opportunity that I can think of is if you love dealing with people, if you love handling money, science administration is a very, very interesting option. What do I mean by that? You know how we can do the kind of research that we do? We are funded by funding bodies, government bodies, private bodies, corporate sponsored projects are possible. It exists very minimally in the astrobiology space, but it is possible. So when you have money coming from these various places, they give you funding for about 3 years or 5 years. And effective use of that money is completely non-trivial, because of which institutes actually have grants office where you have grants managers who are a PhD in science, any area of science. So now, for example, let's say you did astrobiology PhD, right? Or in some area where the question relates to astrobiology. I'm just going to throw it out there, but you can possibly work with, say, Department of Science and Technology as a person who thinks about how to bring about money in India for projects in astrobiology, given that that's your strength. Some jobs don't exist, but there are ways to sort of carve these spaces as you go by talking, networking, and it's not impossible at all. Or science administration in any of the established institutes. And some of the institutes where astrobiology exists now include AQUA, the Amity Center of Excellence in Astrobiology. You have ISER Pune, you have people who are working in the Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleosciences. So maybe they are looking for people with this background to be able to specially sort of, think about how to bring in money for astrobiology research and how to manage it. So I've talked about maybe 2 or 3 areas now. One other very important, and my student, and I'll show his picture in a second. My first student who finished his PhD from my lab is a project manager at the Science Activity Center in ISER Pune, because he's crazy about science communication and thinking about pedagogy in science. How do I come up with more effective curricula in science? How do we get students excited about science curricula? So he kind of got associated with the SAC here roughly in his 3rd year, started getting his hands wet and trying to figure out what kind of projects might interest him. Not every institute has a science activity center, but it's becoming more common in some of the top 20 institutes in the country. So you can start thinking about doing some of these things in the institute that you're working at, but be sort of associated with their science outreach department, because if you're a person who loves science outreach and talking about science with students from various sort of stages of education, and if you are very interested in thinking about how to teach science more effectively, this is a wonderful career that you can have. What else did I want to tell you about? Of course, there are some of our astrobiologist friends who are associated with an organization called BMSIS. And in BMSIS, it's just not scientists who are astrobiologists who are out there, but there are a whole bunch of people with diverse skill sets that exist there to make BMSIS a success. It's called Blue Marble. Blue Marble, somebody help me out here. Space.
It's Blue Marble Space Institute of Science.
Perfect, you know it, so I don't have to tell you. And that place doesn't run all by itself. It requires various people of various skill sets to make that work. Of course, you have astrobiology researchers who take on interns and allow you to work with them remotely or maybe in their labs itself or within their groups itself. But there are a whole bunch of other people that essentially are required to make BIMSIS work the way it works. So you have all these possibilities. But let's say you decide academia is what you want to do. You can further go on to do a postdoctoral fellow. Here you see what is called the NASA postdoctoral program, which is very selective and is not open to, it's something that not everybody can land, but that is not the end of life. I have a postdoc in my lab. He's not called a NASA postdoctoral fellow, but he is a postdoctoral fellow nevertheless. And he's a synthetic organic chemist. And thanks to him, we can do the amazing prebiotic chemistry that we're doing in lab. Doing in the group, and he is training with us to essentially go on to do other things in life. He might either want to be an entrepreneur or he might also want to teach and do research. Depends upon what he wants to do eventually, right? So this is sort of to give you a sense of what all possibilities exist. And using these various tools, fundamentally, we are trying to crack this problem of how we think non-life transition to life. I'm going to stop with saying the following, which is, and okay, just to kind of give you a flavor of one more thing, we work in various areas of astrobiology. We're interested in looking at, in origins of life, we're interested in looking at how the first informational molecules and catalytic molecules came about, interested in understanding that how once they came about, how did they very successfully replicate the information encoded in them to be able to survive. And we are very interested also in concocting some of the oldest enzymes, and we do all of this from a non-enzymatic space because enzymes means complicated biology, and complicated biology means chicken and egg problem, which came about first, right? So in order to make it more pragmatic and tractable, we kind of use non-enzymatic means to understand our questions, and all of what we do has fundamental implications for understanding habitability related aspects. For example, if you want to send a gadget on, say, I mean, one of the rovers out there is Perseverance, right? So Perseverance rover out there, what is it doing? It's collecting a lot of crazy amounts of data, right? It's got this ultraviolet spectrophotometer called Sherlock. It's got this huge, extremely high-end cameras on it. It has other kinds of IR spectrophotometers on it. Fundamentally, it's going to be able to send us back data, or it is beginning to send us back data, which allows us to understand the geology of Mars even better, the chemistry that's possible in the geological settings. It allows us to, for example, also understand how truly the surface topography is, so that when we send any future rovers or helicopters out there, how can we improve on our existing models? So you basically get data that allows you to appreciate everything from the mineralogy to the organic chemistry that's possible there to understanding the fundamental geology of the space, right? So if you want this instrument to sort of be an effective means of gathering data, you should be able to program into it what is it that it is looking for, or what is it that it has to essentially give us as an output from all the craziness of data that it gathers. And for it to be doing an effective job, we first of all need to understand the fundamental concepts that underlies the geology on early Earth, the prebiotic chemistry that was possible in certain niches of the early earth. And by doing the kind of research that we're doing, we are adding to this information that is essentially used for making this data collection much more robust. And when you work with this data and try to interpret it, you are coming from a much, much more pragmatic place as to what it is that you should be looking for, not just life molecules, but also pre-life molecules, right? So I'm just going to, yeah, and we also do this. We do field experiments. So what are the areas of sciences that gets covered here, people?
Geology.
Awesome.
Planetary sciences, microbiology.
Paleontology,
Awesome.
Microbiology.
Absolutely. Even though you're not seeing very cool exotic colors in this particular hot spring, certain hot springs, when you look at them, they are rife with different colors, greens and yellows and oranges. And that basically indicates life, all that extreme life that I showed you in one other previous slide, right? So
Collectively, astrobiology.
robotics,
exactly. Sorry, somebody was saying something.
robotics,
Robotics too. And basically, when we go out there, I'm not a robotics person, but they're I think in one of the 3 teams, ESCP teams that went out last year, there were a bunch of people that actually tried to take a rover out there to understand how it functions in these terrains, right? It allows us to refine our models. So I leave you with this slide, which gives you some snapshot of where relevant astrobiological research is happening in the country. It's not limited to these institutes. Like I said, you can be an expert in few different areas of sciences. Make sure that your fundamental grounding in that is sound. You cannot be jack of all trades, master of none. You have to be master of some trades and jack of all trades if you really want to do exciting science in astrobiology. I will stop with that. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, ma'am.
Maybe I'll leave you with this slide. This is the guy, Manesh, who's a NASA postdoctoral fellow now, the first NASA postdoctoral fellow from my group. This is Chaitanya, who went on to do, he's become the project coordinator of this extremely cool project, which works in the realm of science outreach and science communication. Sushovan and Shika are doing postdocs in the US. She's an inorganic chemist by training, and he's a hardcore molecular biologist, biophysicist. And this is Anupam, who's the synthetic organic chemist in the lab. And a whole bunch of undergrads, sorry, these 2 are grad students and 3 are grad students, but a whole bunch of undergrads who are now doing, 2 of them are doing PhD, 2 of them are continuing as research assistants in labs in different parts of the world, and all with very diverse interests. Questions? I'll stop sharing so I can see people.
Yes. So, yes, before we start the questions, I would like to obviously thank you for the talk. We really actually appreciate that you discussed the job board and the other possibilities in astrobiology other than research, because a lot of the students had concerns about that. So, with this, of course, I'd like to open the floor to questions. Students can either type their question, or you can always just ask your question as well.
I'm just going to quickly look at the chat thing, yeah?
Mhm.
Oh, these were some of the answers people were giving.
Yes.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, Setu.
Yeah, so I have a question regarding admission and eligibility. So I'm basically from the computer science background. I work as a data scientist, and I'm also learning remote sensing. So I want to go into the astrobiology field. So in the page, in the Amitivy page, so they have stated only the physical sciences background can get the admission. So I have computer science background. Am I eligible to attend the program?
So this is a question for Renita and Pavitra. I'll let them take it.
Yes, you are eligible to attend. So we will be changing that. So it means not just physical, biological, and chemical sciences. It also means people from computer science specialization, engineering specialization, as Sudha has well explained, what all are the fields associated related to astrobiology and its studies. So we are, this particular course is designed in such a way that it is going to be something which is not exactly, you can say, specialization kind of a thing, but it will touch upon all the things that Sudha has already said, a little bit of geology, a little bit of planetary science, microbiology, biochemistry. All these aspects would be covered in this course. So it's like an introductory course. So you are eligible for this particular course.
Okay. Thank
You can send me your email details. I will send you the admission details.
Yes, ma'am. I already did with Mr. Siddharth. So he said he has forwarded it to the right person. So I'm yet to get
Okay.
it.
And
Okay, okay.
And if I can just add, say too, so one of this thing that I touched upon where I say that we collaborate with modelers to look at some of the questions we are interested in. I think it's very important for you to appreciate this coming from the background that you have. You have fundamental background in physics and stuff, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so with physics and this interest that you have in computational science, you can literally, for example, look at the complexity of the chemical space of prebiotic soup using tools on a computer. You can actually try and model how what are the different ways in which these molecules can interact with each other to form new molecules. You cannot basically do this without having some understanding of the context, which is why this MSc course is super important. And when you start modeling, you will actually start appreciating that experiments and modeling go very close hand in hand. My collaborators cannot model effectively without the data that I give them. Yeah, they need some of the numbers that I give them to be able to model more realistically the possibilities that exist, so on and so forth. So very important to have people with your kind of background also. And I'm very happy that you can actually partake of this program. So good luck.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, my name is Gurpreet Singh and hello.
Hi, can hear you.
I'm very excited actually today. I was looking that how can I connect with you from a great.
Are you crying?
No, ma'am, I'm not crying. Actually, I
Oh.
was looking that how can I connect with you and I work under you. And I had given the ISER amplitude test this year, but couldn't crack anyway. But right now I'm doing my BSc with botany, zoology, and biotechnology. Can I do my master's and PhD work under you at ISER Pune
It
through
depends.
IIT JAM?
So the in principle answer is of course, but it's more complicated than that, Gurpreet, because once you finish your BSc, for example, right, you just can't directly hit me up and say, hey, Sudha, I'm done with my BSc. Can I now join for the master's and PhD program under you? It doesn't work that way. Typically, and this is true for most institutes and how their IPHD and PhD programs work, there's a central point through which you have to enter. And that central point of entry has a whole bunch of prerequisites that you have to fulfill. For example, let's take the IPHD program, right? The IPHD program is where you can enter soon after your BSc. And for you to even be eligible for consideration, there is something called the Joint General Entrance Examination in Biology and Integrated Life Sciences. It's called GBILS. It's a bit of a mouthful, but you need to take that exam, which is conducted December of every year. And you need to take the exam the last year of your BSc in that December to even be eligible for consideration in about 21 institutes in the country, including ISER Pune. And we all have our own cutoffs for a certain year. And this particular exam is a lot like KVPY exam. Did anybody out here give a KVPY exam?
Yeah, I did.
You did. So it's a lot like a KVPY exam where you have 4 different sections in chemistry, in biology, in physics, in math, and a 5th section in general ability. And you have both negative scores, and you even have negative scoring if you get the answer wrong. It is a very exciting exam, but it is a very strict filter too. If you don't get through with a certain score in that, you cannot even access the IPHD program in ISER Pune. So all I'm trying to say is, if you truly want to get into ISER Pune at some point, especially after your BSc, you need to start planning and preparing. You don't have to do any, what do you call that? any course and whatever else all these people advertise and stuff. All you need to do is make sure that your fundamental grounding in these 4 areas of sciences from your 12th grade is solid. Am I making sense?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. So that is
So-
how you can. What you can consider doing, of course, is after your 2nd year of undergrad or somewhere in between, you can hit me up and we can get you started doing some reading project or something like that. Even for that, because we get a lot of applications for each of the groups in ICER, we have, each one of us has our own sort of checks and balances to be able to manage the numbers. So for example, I put you through an exercise. If you get past that exercise, you can essentially join us for a reading project to start off with, after which it can become an experimental project.
So how can I connect with you for
You
that?
can connect with me after your 2nd year, not now.
Okay. Through emails?
Yeah, email. My email is available online.
Okay. So right now I should target JJ Bill's exam, right?
JG Bills in your final year, Ray. You just started
Yeah.
out in the 1st year, right?
Yeah.
Correct. So go see JG Bill's question papers from the last several years is available on NCBS site, National Center for Biological Sciences. NCBS's website has these question papers. So go take a look at the questions from the various years. You get a flavor of what you are expected to train in. Yeah, that's a good place to start.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Okay, so there's a question on chat from one of the mother who is a biotech undergrad. She'd like to know all the possible career opportunities one can consider in the field of astrobiology. Can there be a bridge over shift possible from biotechnology to astrobiology?
Sorry, is this mother joining us just now? Because I spoke for 40 minutes about this.
This
Uh,
person has been online, I think, for the entire talk, but I am unaware of.
So I don't know if you had connection issues, but that is pretty much what I talked throughout this talk, other than the fact that I used my own research as a way to touch upon several of these aspects. Once again, in a nutshell, just like any other field of science, it has nothing to do with astrobiology. One trains at certain levels of these sciences, at bachelor's and then master's. And if you feel like, or if your ward feels like, in PhD, after which there are multiple job opportunities that exist. It has nothing to do with wanting to only end up becoming a scientist. That is one of the most obvious careers that you all know about. I'm a researcher myself. I am an associate professor in IISER Pune, but that's not the only job that's available for somebody with a PhD in any area of science. One can be looking at science communication, one can be looking at science outreach and pedagogy development, one can be looking at science policy. I didn't talk about this. After you're done with your PhD or along with it, you can essentially do certificate courses or advance 1 year, 1.5 year course in science policy and actually start working with funding agencies across the world to influence how science is taken forward. And I think that's a very, very exciting and powerful career to be in. So science outreach, science education, science policy. Then you also have a few more, you can become an entrepreneur, which is something I didn't touch upon at all, but there are funding agencies, there are funding opportunities under, for example, Department of Biotechnology, where one can pitch a concept, and this can happen right at the level of masters. You don't have to do a PhD. Some of our master's level students do this. You pitch a project which you think is viable as, for example, treatment for handling mosquitoes which cause malaria. So you kind of pitch a sound scientific proposal, send it to BIRAC. Particularly students in IISER Pune have what is called the Atal Incubation Center, and people in the Atal Incubation Center can help them with this. And it's a national level competition. And if your proposal is really solid, you get funded for a few years to get fundamental, to get the preliminary results that is required to then go on to take this research to a higher level and make it a company. Along the way, they help you throughout. So one can even become a science entrepreneur. So having a solid basis in science, you can start your own company. And so in my mind, there are like several areas into which students can go. This notion of ek bar science liya, so it is a dead end, is extremely wrong. I hope I've been able to touch upon some things that you wanted to sort of hear as a summary.
Yes, I think STEM would also come under the science communicator.
Absolutely.
As well.
STEM,
Would have,
STEM is science. So
yes.
of course, science,
So-
technology, engineering, management, and now it's also STEM has become STEM mathematics.
Yes,
There's an
yes.
extra M there. So you can be doing a whole bunch of this. Actually, I have one very interesting resource that India Bioscience put together. Pavitra and Renita, if you actually remind me, it's suddenly coming to me right now. I tried to quickly look at it when you were introducing me and I couldn't find it, but I can basically send it across and you can share it with whoever is on your signed up for your news or whatever else. It's about these various career opportunities that I'm talking about. So it's nice to, because it's right now, you know, I speak and despite talking 40 minutes about it, somebody had a question, which means this 40-minute conversation is not enough. One has to keep reading up about this and trying to get a better sense of what the resources actually exist for each area. And this particular document that they put together was, I thought, very, very useful. I shared it even with my students all across ICER. So I'm happy to send it to you people and you can share it with whoever you think you should share it with everyone, basically.
Yes.
I hope, Mother, I kind of helped you with that answer.
Yes, they just responded saying they have very poor connection. So they were getting disconnected.
I see.
Hence the question.
Oh, sorry about that.
So there's one question from Shifa. Shifa, would you like to ask the question or would you like me to read it out? Okay, so she asks, will India be hiring an astrobiologist in ISRO in coming years?
So that's a very important question. So one of the challenges has been to impress upon ISRO the importance of astrobiologists on their team, because I think they've been focusing a lot on space technology. But having said that, in the last decade or so, they are also realizing the importance of hardcore astrobiology researchers in their midst. So it's beginning to happen very much. There is a place called Indian Institute for Space Technology in Trivandrum. They actually have a course, a program, a 4-year program, not at all astrobiology. They have probably 1 or 2 courses which slightly touches upon it, but that basically allows you to directly be eligible to apply to ISRO for a position. Having said that, in future, this MSc Astrobiology and Space Sciences program, if all goes well and if it takes off, this probably will provide you that launch pad to get into ISRO. It's a bit too early to make any promises, but I'm very sure that Renita, Pavitra, and their colleagues are having this on their radar. It will require them to liaise with ISRO, us to liaise with ISRO and impress upon them the importance of considering you all for those jobs too. Is it fundamentally possible? The answer is yes. And again, only the undergrads from IIST are not eligible for ISRO jobs. ISRO jobs is open to everyone. There are some prerequisites which explicitly gets mentioned along with each position that they announce. So you should keep your eyes out for that. But MSCs are very much in that list. An MSc in astrobiology and space sciences should be attractive to them. If I was hiring, I would be attracted by that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, Ilam Kurali, do you have a question? Your hand's raised.
Not a question, but I would like to add to something what Sudha ma'am told just now. That not only students from IIST are eligible for ISRO jobs, and especially the importance of astrobiology with ISRO, it's booming right now. And I had a question in my mind that what is the future of the MSc astrobiology course? Like, what are we expecting from the Indian students and also the astrobiology community from India? So maybe these both questions connect. Like, we can also persuade ISRO and leverage on their interest with the upcoming research.
No, very, very, very possible. And the very fact that the astrobiology program also includes space sciences precisely makes it that much more easily, that it allows all of us to bridge this connection that much more readily. And like you're saying, Ilangu, really, very, very doable.
Yes, ma'am.
Anand has a question, I think.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm Anand here. So I come from an electronics background. I work as an power electronics engineer for spacecraft as of now. My interest is to apply for this course, but I want to know that how would it would be benefiting us in the future missions, like say ISRO is planning for human space missions, and then eventually there would be a lot of frequent missions where these like their main work would be to perform some experiment in space. So how could we be giving them, say, a upper hand in what we know and what they don't know? Like, how can we?
They don't know anything about how life originated, buddy. They have
Okay.
zero idea. And I already told you, I'm sorry, you need to edit this out also. They don't have
Okay.
any idea about that, right? They basically know everything about very complex life. So anything
Correct.
that they do now involves trying to understand aspects about this complex life more than anything else. And by doing this course, Anand, I'm hoping with all this spiel I gave for the last 40 minutes or 50
Correct.
minutes, now an hour, the thing that should have stood out to you is this grand connectivity between various areas of sciences and
Yes.
how they inform various research questions in astrobiology. That is what you are going to exactly take away from this program if you use it effectively. It's a 2-year program, and you're already seeing how complex it's going to be, right? It's got
Yes.
snippets from, it's got aspects from all these areas. You're not going to be able to do an MSc in geology, an MSc in astronomy, an MSc in biology, not possible. So the idea is to root you in the fundamental concepts from all of these areas, not all, a whole important set of sub areas that will allow you to then think about astrobiology questions in a much more effective manner, given the pre-existing engineering training that you have. Am I making sense?
Yes. Yeah. That
And then
makes sense.
Anand, you come with a very unique subset of skills which nobody in ISRO has at this point.
Okay.
You're an
No,
Huh.
so I am not able to figure it out because see, in ISS as of now, even US is doing some astrobiological experiments on ISS.
Right.
But India doesn't have that scope as of now. But yeah,
It's happening.
if they are doing it in future, eventually in this decade after the Gaganyaan program, will we be at an upper hand saying that, yes, we know what experiments to do over there on board?
Of course. Renita, you should tell them about the projects that are happening right now that are going as payloads. I'll let Renita and Pavitra add to this.
So I have been following Amity as well. So I have been with Siddharth Pandey for a project. So I know the poem they were going to put up a payload for this similar.
When you have the answer, dude, you'll be
Yes.
part of those projects.
No, I want to know if these people, the course who's taking now as of now for the astrobiology, they would be doing it, or it would be the faculty members or the people who are already into it would be mostly doing it. They'll be teaching us that is what I want to know. Are we being taught over there? Yeah.
Yeah, Anita and Pavitra, you should go. You should take this.
So Anand, I guess you are already in touch with Dr. Siddharth. So, and since you are already aware of the payloads that we are planning, just to add on to a little bit about information of the payload. So our payload is basically to understand how, what effects microgravity is going to have on callus culture. So it's a plant sample kind of a culture that we plan to send. And though this is planned for a mission which is not going to come back, we have people who are associated with us, students. When I say people, I mean students from engineering, from biology, from computer science, who have helped us design this payload, and also who are the ones who are going to help us in getting the information from this particular payload. So as you said, it is never the faculty who is, who's the only one who is involved. It is just like, we are just a guide. We are just showing you the path as this particular course is. So the main aim in designing this course was also the fact that if I myself talk about being from a microbiology background, I got associated with astrobiology in the last 3 years. And later on, with the various interactions I had with people, I came to know about what this whole astrobiology is about. It is not just about, astronomy or space sciences as such. It is more into many aspects which people are not aware of. So with this course, we will just provide you, since it is a master's course. So as Sudha said, you will have a particular specialization degree, maybe in computer science, maybe in botany, maybe in zoology or microbiology, post which you, with this course will help you understand how you can use your knowledge that you gained in your graduate level to do experiments which will help in studies related to astrobiology. So as we have biotechnology today, which also was not something which India started off earlier. We had this being done internationally. The same way we as in Amity are trying to provide a platform in the form of a degree course which is available to students. And after this platform, we are pretty sure that there would be large number of job opportunities that would definitely come up for people with a specialization in this particular course.
Yes, and one thing I want to add with what Dr. Sudha and Renita had mentioned is you would ask questions about the course as such. So the center as such is actually very interdisciplinary. So we have biologists, we have physicists, we have geologists, we also have engineer, as you know, Dr. Siddharth. So the course will be handled in such a manner where, we hope that you get the most out of this interdisciplinary faculty that we already have. And then based on that, with projects and so on, you can focus on what would be interesting to you and pursue from there.
Yeah, that's sorts. So that was my main doubt over there, because I did my engineering, but after engineering, I completed my engineering. I was like, oh, the 4 years were just showing the textbook knowledge of it. So I did not have any hands-on say what that actually payload is going to do. So in this, will that scope be available was my main doubt. So you clarified it. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Ma'am, can you please tell some of the online certificate courses that are provided for astrobiology? Like one, I know that Indian Astrobiology Research Foundation is providing diploma.
No. Indian Astrobiology Research Foundation is not providing a good coursework. I have seen this coursework a few years ago. It was extremely wanting in its content. Please go to MOOCs, and there are some MOOC courses by Charles Cockle. There are certain other MOOC courses that are offered by Arizona. Those are the courses that you're looking at.
Okay, these are online courses.
Yes, they are online courses. MOOC is massive online something course. MOOCs are readily available to anybody from across the planet. All you need is access to a computer. And hopefully, like I said, by next summer, our own program might be available via Gyan on NPTEL. So we should be able to also, once that happens, I will let you people know, yeah? Massive open and online courses. Thank you, Anurup. And hi again. Hi, I didn't see you in the group.
Thank you.
Early on.
Okay, so I think we can close the session with a word of thanks. So first, of course, if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to contact us or Dr. Sudha as well. So Sudha, thank you for that insightful talk. And I'm sure that your experience and unique path shed light to a lot of the upcoming scientists in the field of astrobiology. Now I'd like to welcome Dr. Sneha to give the word of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Pavitra. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is a formality to thank, but I really would like to thank today's speaker. I think she has rightly caught the nerve of this, conducting these career guidance talks. So she has touched upon every aspect of the doubts which students had and they had asked us. So I really thank Dr. Sudha for giving us time and giving such a wonderful talk. I hope the students are inspired now and they dream of becoming an astrobiologist in future. I also thank our Honorable VC Sir for boosting us in every prospects that we carry out at the Center of Astrobiology. I also thank our HOI, Dr. Penna Suprasanna, for his insights about how to go further and to reach everybody in the field. I thank our head in charge of the center, Dr. Renita, for actually, reaching out to the people and the students and make a bridge for having a fruitful conversations that we had today also. I also thank our IT team for their hustle-free support in conducting such online talks and seminars. I thank all the participants and our faculty for being a part of this particular session. And I hope in future we'll be having more and more discussions about the emerging field of astrobiology, as rightly said by the speakers, that it is not astrobiology is not a one box in which we fit everything. It is reaching out to the different field of sciences or taking something from those fields. So many more talks to come in future. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your support. Bye.
Thank you all. I really enjoyed this interaction, and thanks for having me again. I'm just messaging Koshang's mom. I think she was the one who had the question.
Yes.
Sorry, your connection was not great. Koshang has, I think, my email address. So you're very welcome to touch base with me if you have any more specific questions. But trust me when I say that doing an undergrad and a master's in science still does set you up for a lot of career options. It's just that we don't have this information readily available out there. But like I said, there's a very interesting resource that I have. I'm going to share it with Pavitra and Renita, and please spread the word. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you all. And I see Sipsankar Palit. Hi, man. I hope you're fine.
Yes, ma'am. I hope that you are also doing fine. Thank you.
Doing good. I'm doing good. Hi to all the new people and the old friends, and Pavitra and Renita and Shweta and Selva. I'll say bye. Is it okay? I'll step out.
Yes,
Yes.
we're good. Yes. Thank you, Sudha.
See you
Thank you
soon
so
in
much, Sudha.
person. Ciao, ciao.
Yes,
My
yes.
pleasure.
Bye bye.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye.